I'm actually taking.
I'm going to call to order the City of Norco City Council Budget Workshop. The City Clerk will take the roll.
Council members Newton.
Here.
Bash. Hannah.
Here.
Hoffman.
Here.
Mayor Grunmeyer.
Yes.
All present.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have Councilmember Hoffman lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand. Join me in saluting our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we have one business item for today. I want to remind everybody what the order of the presentation will be. We'll have our staff report and presentation. Council will then have their questions of staff. We'll have public speakers in favor, against, and neutral, and then it will come back to council for discussion and direction. So with that, we have the presentation of the preliminary fiscal year 2019-2020 operating budget, and that will be with Gina.
Madam Mayor, before we go into the presentation, I'd like to make a couple of comments. And that is, we have a lot of materials to go over this afternoon, and we have 2 hours. So most likely, we will carry over some of the materials to the next budget study session. This is the operating budget, of course. And because one of the things we want to do different this year, oftentimes we spend a lot of time talking about the numbers in the budget. This year we want to go a little bit above and beyond that to talk about what the responsibilities of each department and division in the city is, some of their goals in going about fulfilling those responsibilities, and some of the achievements over the past year. Oftentimes, again, those stories do get lost in the numbers. The reality is that those stories are bigger than the numbers, and we want to spend time reviewing portions of that, the highlights at least, with members of the public and the City Council this afternoon.
Thank you, Andy and Mayor. And what I'd like to do is introduce you to the budget book. It's hot off the presses. It will be on our website tomorrow. It is a preliminary budget. I anticipate we'll have a proposed budget and then a final budget. And within this document, and thank you for your patience on it, we've got several items. We've got, in the inside cover, you'll see a 11 by 17 spreadsheet with the detail of the contractual items in the general fund. And you'll be able to see the detail on that. That will also be available for everyone. The budget goes through the major funds at the beginning, and then departments in the middle, and in those department tabs, and this is for staff as well, are the goals and objectives and accomplishments for each department. So as you're looking at your slide today, feel free to refer to your tab and your finalized goals, objectives, and accomplishments. The very back of the book is something extra new. These are new reports that we have for you from our financial system that actually allow us to put in data that exists in the financial system and then hot off the press preliminary numbers that we enter into the budget module, as well as the current budget that's in these budget pages. So with this spreadsheet, it's a landscape view. We've got 17-18 actuals, adopted budget, amended budget, estimated budget for year end, what we call department head budget, which is a budget that's in the other part of the binder, and the change percentage-wise between budget to budget and change from budget amendment and budget to year end. So you'll be able to look line item to line item to see what's changed, and also match the contractual to the larger spreadsheet. So that's the introduction to the budget binder. Any questions, let me know. You don't have to go through it today, and we've got some time, and I'm always available. So now I'll move forward, unless there's any questions on the binder. I did add one extra piece of paper today that didn't go with the binder last night, which is a running kind of like summary of 1819 and 1920. It's a one-page, and I'll go through that in a story format in the slide presentation. And now we'll move forward. And before I begin, I want to let you know there is one item I found right before I stepped up to the mic. Thank you, Julie, by the way. There are page numbers in this PowerPoint presentation which do not relate to the budget that was given last night. So we will modify that for our future listeners. Yes. Okay. We'll start off with the objectives for today. Along with the objectives Andy indicated, we will be going through the operating budget status for the current fiscal year, the 1920, fiscal year 1920 highlights, a summary of the general fund revenues for next year and expenditures. We'll review multiple years, basically 17, 18 on. Have a summary of water fund, sewer fund, gas tax, and a detailed review by department for expenditures. And then a brief, discussion of Measure R. Well, here's where the fun story begins. And General Fund 1819 last year, June, we presented a $1.3 million deficit. In what has happened between now and then, we've experienced an increase in fees associated with Norco Village and hotel projects. We also had some one-time sales tax, and I know you're familiar with the story. The state of California decided to revamp their computer system, which makes it very difficult for businesses to submit their sales tax receipts and information, and very difficult for the state to remit them. So we've received one time, in a sense, revenues from prior years. Riverside County has also estimated a reduction in the share of service costs from the original projection last year. It was originally budgeted at 7%, and the estimate is now at 2.2%. So that also brought down our expenditures. Actual CAL FIRE invoices are coming in less than budgeted, resulting in projected savings. There could always be a surprise there, but we haven't seen one yet. The invoices are very predictable. And of course, there's overall departmental savings that you'll see in the budget. This resulted in the elimination of the $1.3 million deficit this year. And that's always I'd love to say, that's the end of the story, but it actually isn't. We received even more revenue, and it's one time. Cumulative revenue increases and expenditure reductions are projected to result in $600,000 in revenues over expenditures by June 30th, 2019. And again, it's one time. Here we go. General fund status for 1920. General fund, we are estimating revenues of $20.6 million and estimated expenditures of $21.6. That is a projected structural deficit of $1 million. I put the term structural in it because it seems to be we have it, but it's slowly getting whittled away. Expenditures projected for this next year, public safety, we have a 5% annual adjustment for sheriff services. This, of course, continues the funding for the one additional traffic enforcement deputy and community services officer. We're projecting an annual increase of 5% for CAL FIRE. Mind you, we put that 5% on our estimated year-end projection as well for them for the current fiscal year. For next year, the budget includes increased healthcare and pension costs, continues to provide limited funding to pay down liability for post-retirement healthcare costs, as well as PAYGO retiree healthcare cost increases, provides funding to pay for pass-through employer pension rate increases. City employees continue to pay their full share of employee portion of pension contribution. It includes funding for increased utility cost and provides funding for contributions to the equipment replacement fund. If you recall, last year we did not include that in the general fund budget. We also have one request, which includes $100,000 for the completion of a circulation element. We do have revenue for that. Steve may go into that later on his slide. What is not included in the expenditures for the operating budget are what has been in the past $75,000 transfer from the general fund to the NPDES storm drain fund to provide assistance regarding the permit. The Public Works Department is gearing up for that. You're going to see considerable expenditures in that area, and we're still able to use prior year savings from the increased assessments to properties. that we will watch that over time. The budget does not include Measure R considerations, and it does not include MOU considerations. In regards to revenues, the revenues are generally flat from 1819 and 1920. Overhead reimbursements are increasing as a result of the cost allocation plan, and I thank you for carrying the binder around. You didn't have to read it, but it is a document that does show how all those costs were calculated. Revenue not included in the preliminary budget. Overhead reimbursements. In this area, we continue to anticipate a loss of $108,000 from the former redevelopment agency for RDA employees in an ongoing dispute with the DOF. It also does not include any of the fee studies recommendations that will be coming to you tonight, and those will also be reviewed for a conservative projection, and then we'll come back at mid-year to see how we're doing, if they are approved. 1920 Water Fund, and again, we're still going through highlights. We are in the process of initiating a refunding of our 2009 enterprise water and sewer bonds. We do anticipate there being an impact to the water fund with that. I won't get into the details, but we'll see some changes. Repayment of $324,000 to the equipment replacement fund for vehicles not originally in the equipment replacement fund. There's a slide you'll see later. Some vehicles that came to you from the Public Works Department this last year for approval, some cranes. Those are, of course, it's a delay to purchase them. They'll impact next year. And since those were new vehicles and not originally funded, one wasn't, in the equipment replacement fund, we are up-fronting the money from the water and sewer fund to pay for those. So it isn't taking away from any other vehicles in the fund. And it's the third consecutive year of increasing operating and emergency reserves within the water fund and then the sewer fund. For the IT fund, the budget includes an IT assessment plan, and that IT assessment plan will change the charging structure. The theme you'll hear through this budget presentation is increasing internal fund charges. We did look at those and spread them around to the areas that were responsible for receiving those services. The IT assessment plan will allow us to actually go deeper into that. And let's see, we have community development software, and we are looking at getting a community development software associated with our financial system and our utility billing system. So it's called an ERP, and there'll be some more information either today or at another time on that project. And the funds are included in the IT fund. And let's see, there we go. Summary of general fund revenues. Now this is the big picture. As you can see, sales tax, property tax, and our large slices. I have changed the name from motor vehicle license to property tax in lieu of VLF. There's a long history there. It's now, VLF is now based on property tax, so it'll grow at the same rate as property tax. That goes back to the early 2000s when the state of California decided to swap out revenues. So I decided to call it its real name, but it's still what you might consider MBL in the old days. We have other taxes, franchise fees, fines and penalties, lease and interest income. I'll be speaking more about that. We have fund balance throughout the city, and of course we're getting interest earnings on that as interest rates go up. Community development fees and recreation fees and other revenue, and administrative and overhead transfers. And as I go through this, if you want to remember those pie slices, you'll see the impact. And here we have the table of all the changes. Property tax, we are seeing assessed value increases in that area of about 4%. We were told about 8 months ago that we were seeing that increase, and we're seeing the increases in revenues now. Sales tax, if you look in the amended column, you'll see 7.3 million, and then a year-end estimate of 7.5. That 7.5 is the jump of one-time sales tax, and it will go down to 7.1. Property tax in lieu, that mirrors the property tax increase. Other taxes, that's an 8% increase. Franchise fees, there'll be a slight change there, and we'll get into that in a little detail. Fines and penalties, interest income, as I mentioned earlier, it is going up significantly. Community development fees, We are always conservative in this area, and that's where we get these lovely surprises. And we'll get into more information, give you more information on that in the next slides. Community services, recreation, other revenues of slightly down by 2%, and our overhead, the $122,000 is the increase in cost allocation to the water and sewer funds. Overall, we're seeing an increase of $246,000 in revenues as compared to the amended budget, and $128,000 as compared to year-end. That is what I consider a flat revenue budget. And all the revenues are conservatively projected. Adjustments, as you're aware, occur at mid-year and then at this time. I'll move quickly through these since I've touched on the major points. Property tax, 4% increase. Sales tax, state of California. Property tax in lieu, again, that is a 4% increase. Other taxes, we've got TOT revenue increasing by just itself by 16%. We put a projection of 6 months at 50% occupancy from Wood Springs. That's about $100,000 we're looking at. Franchise fees. Slight decrease in cable. It seems to fluctuate, but we're still seeing some fees increases there. I'm still being conservative on that projection. And our refuse fees are no longer increasing. Fines and penalties, those are always unpredictable. We will come back to you at mid-year. Interest and lease income. We're seeing a 17% increase in that item, and we will continue to see that as we invest in different areas. Community development fees, 17% decrease as compared to year-end. That's because we're conservative. We'll come back at mid-year with changes. Community services and recreation, again, that is a flat area and conservative projection. Other revenues, we have a slight decrease of 2%, and this is the quandary with dog license. We seem to get more dog license revenue every year, and we do have a very aggressive animal control staff, so they're finding animals to have license revenue, but so it does jump. Overhead revenues, again, these are the costs allocated to other funds that receive services from the general fund. And we continue to see the loss of successor agency reimbursement there at the time, for the time being, for unfunded pension and retiree health care liabilities of the former redevelopment agency employees. And we are seeing an 8% increase as a result of the cost allocation items that I had mentioned earlier. And then also, it's flat, but the bus that we had in the current year budget is delayed, or it's the normal process of getting a bus. It'll be here early in the next fiscal year. So we're making the transfer, the match from our equipment replacement fund to the general fund in 1920. General fund expenditures, again, a visual of where our costs are located. About 50% of the pie, a little bit more, is public safety, and then we have parks and recreation, and non-departmental, which houses quite a bit of our liability costs and benefit costs, and some costs related to our former fire department. Administration, which includes finance, city manager, city clerk, public works and engineering, community development, and city council, city attorney, and teens and seniors. Now we'll get into the visual of the journey that we've had. Last year, we had a fund balance of about $11.7 million. And we've estimated revenues in total of 20.7, estimated expenditures of 20, for the revenues over expenditures of $657,000. That will contribute to an estimated fund balance of $12.3 million. Estimated revenues for this coming year, $20.6 million. Estimated expenditures, $21.6, for a deficit of $1 million. And actually, let's see, that number has changed. That is something I'm going to have to correct. $11.3 million is the total. And what we have at mid-year, the bottom paragraph is exactly what I said earlier, so I won't repeat that, but that tells you the journey that we have gone through since last year. And let's see, general fund revenue status. Our estimated unassigned reserve at this point is $10.9 million, and that's taking the $11 million I mentioned earlier and subtracting $465,000. Those are the trust fund and deposit accounts that we have that are being held for recreation and planning. City Council emergency reserves, $5.4 million, and that's a result of the City Council resolution to set aside 25% of our $21.6 million in operating expenditures. Estimated current fund balance is $2.1 million in cash and additional $2.59 million in the special asset fund, which is a fund that accumulates when we sell property and such, and long-term loan receivables from Paul Blanco and other investments. General fund revenues. This indicates the trends of our revenue expenditures since 2010, 2011. And then also our fund balance, and you can see it has risen over time to the balance level that I mentioned earlier. And now we'll go into the water fund. Water fund includes, and Andy, I'm not sure if you wanted to jump in on the water fund at all, but I'll go through these bullets if you have any comments. It includes approved water rates effective July 1st, and purchase water costs are estimated based on obligations under take-or-pay purchase water contracts. You'll see potentially a large budget amount in this area, and then at year-end, a lower budget number, a lower expenditure. Budget includes offsetting changes in reduced utility costs, contractual services, increasing vehicle replacement charges, overhead charges, and salaries and benefits. And this is a brief overview of the financial condition. We are looking at about $2.3 million of revenues over expenditures, with $13 million in projected revenues and $10.7 million in projected expenditures. $2.3 million will contribute to the working capital balance. We're looking at the end of at June 30th, 2020, of about $4.8 million in working capital balance. That balance includes the operating and rate stabilization reserves. And as of that time, we anticipate reserves being $1.9 million for emergency operating reserves and $666,000 for rate stabilization reserves. And here's a breakdown of our water revenue. If you were to see this over the last 5 years, you would have seen a larger slice of the pie for domestic water sales. And with the rate study and the change in our structured rates, we've got fixed charges coming in, taking equal amount of that pie at this time. We also have irrigation water sales and other revenues of $311,000. Here's a picture of the salaries expenditure by type for the water fund. Relatively flat as compared to the amended budget for this period of time. I did remove out transfers. As recall, at mid-year we came in with a transfer out of this fund to go to the capital funds. And we have other transfers that may or may not take place, but I wanted to keep an apples-to-apples comparison just on the operating structure here. So if you look at the back of your binder, you might see something different in the financials. And here's a breakdown of that chart for the next fiscal year, $10.7 million, which again, purchase water is the largest amount of that expenditure. And debt service is also a larger part that we'll be looking at for next year. Then we'll move on to the sewer fund. Sewer fund revenues are based on existing sewer rate structure. There will not be an increase on July 1st. And projected increases in expenditure as compared to are due as compared to 18-19 as compared to 19-20 budget is due to increased salary and benefit costs, debt service payments, administrative overhead, and one-time vehicle replacement charges. And we've got the expansion of RECRA. The treatment plant is now completed, and the budget does include an increasing amount in managing and operating the new treatment plant, and that's under the debt service slide that you'll see next. Revenues for the sewer fund are $7.7 million. Expenditures are $7.1. The difference between revenues and expenditures, or $600,000, we'll cross out the million later, is added to the working capital balance on the sewer fund. The estimated capital balance on June 30th, 2020 is $2.7 million. And as of June 30th, 2020, we're looking at emergency operating reserves of $1.7 million. And here's a breakdown of the expenditures by type for the sewer fund. Again, we've got some increases in internal service fund charges related to the equipment I mentioned earlier. And you didn't see it, the overall increase change in the water fund because it's merged in with other increases in the water fund. I just wanted to briefly let you know that. And that covers the changes there. The debt service is due to the RECRA expansion fund loan. And we'll keep on going. Whoops. And here's a breakdown of the structure. Of the sewer fund. With a large portion of that being debt service. Now we'll go to the gas tax fund. The gas tax fund is estimated to have about $721,000 in revenue for 1920 and expenditures of $866,000. This is moving into fund balance. We have enough to cover that. And we're looking at an ending fund balance of $178,000 in the gas tax fund. And we may have more discussion on this when Chad is here. And now we'll move into expenditures by departments. And the police department. I'll turn it over to Andrew. Or to Andy.
Yeah, let me find a tab here. You're gonna go. You're here.
Okay, so for the sheriff's operating budget that we're looking for, the sheriff's contract cost for fiscal year 18-19 is projected to be 3% lower than the amended budget, and this is due to the actuals being less than the projections from the previous year. The sheriff's contract cost for fiscal year 19-20 is projected to increase by 5% as compared to the estimated fiscal year 18-19 contract costs. This is due to the pension obligations, workers' comp rate increases, and county internal service fund cost increases. This 5% is just a projected increase, and the goal of the Sheriff's Department is to actually continue to lower that percentage rate for fiscal year 20. The total all funds include the SLESF grant of $100,000, which is an offset. Going into some of the goals and objectives for fiscal year 19-20, and I think we've covered this. One of the goals that we're looking at is community collaboration, with the objective of enhancing communications.
Lieutenant, could you, before you go into the goals, talk about what we contract for? What service levels the city contracts for?
Sure.
Your program overview.
So with the sheriff's contract, this includes the sheriff's lieutenant position, who is assigned as the police chief for the city. It includes one sheriff's sergeant who supervises the operation. Now that sheriff's sergeant is paid by the county and not through the city. 12.3 full-time equivalent deputy sheriffs assigned to patrol, providing 60 hours of patrol staffing for a 24-hour period. 2 dedicated deputy sheriffs assigned to the special enforcement team who provide crime prevention, event planning, and quality of life. And then you have 1 deputy sheriff assigned to dedicated traffic enforcement, and 3 civilian community service officers who are assigned to patrol operations and logistics. In addition, the city provides an executive secretary to help coordinate Norco Citizens Patrol and part-time staff members who maintain the public lobby operation Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Cases needing additional investigative work beyond a patrol deputy's capabilities are referred to detectives at the Harupa Valley Station. This rate is included with clerical support, crime analysis, forensics, and property storage at the Harupa Valley Station. In addition, we have our Norco Citizens Patrol volunteers who work at least one 4-hour patrol shift per week, direct traffic at collision scenes, handle security at crime scenes, and conduct vacation checks and business checks, all of which assist deputies in the field. So going into the goals and objectives, like I previously said, community collaboration is our first goal, with the objective of enhancing communications with the Norco community by expanding the Neighborhood Watch program to attract more participants and better engage the community in crime prevention and quality of life enhancement efforts. Each block assignment would have a designated deputy sheriff. We would develop Business Watch to aid businesses in crime prevention and safe business practices. Objective 1A to our community collaboration: increase opportunities for community involvement by increasing a physical presence in the community through business foot beats, bike patrols, and volunteer patrols. Solicit feedback from community members on ways to increase police community engagement through social media. Provide community activities to encourage community collaboration through events such as Pizza in the Park, neighborhood trash cleanup, and trail rides. Our second goal for this fiscal year is proactive crime suppression strategies. Our objective is to continue to develop strategies to reduce crime and improve quality of life issues. Access for all staff to track and address quality of life issues through a technology-based software provided through the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. Increase usage of crime reduction technologies as well as tasking personnel with specific areas of expertise. Our third goal is volunteer recruitment. Objective is to recruit, train, and deploy additional citizen volunteers. Recruitment members for the Norco Citizens Patrol Group by participating in community events, developing a Norco Explorer Troop to bring youth into a career in law enforcement, as well as assign a Norco chaplain from our local faith-based organization. Our fourth goal is to increase dedicated staff positions. Our objective is to look to increase dedicated staff positions to include a sheriff sergeant and an additional traffic enforcement deputy sheriff. With the dedicated sheriff sergeant, frontline supervision is provided to all staff and can quickly respond to critical incidents. With special events, the sheriff sergeant provides site security and staffing. An additional deputy sheriff assigned to traffic enforcement provides for safer streets due to the increase in traffic due to the multiple highway construction projects along the 15 freeway and the future expansion of the Hamner Avenue Bridge. Funding sources include the recommendation from the Measure R Oversight Committee and budget savings due to the forecasted cost savings in the sheriff's contract rate.
Okay, maybe we should step back and see if any council member has any questions regarding the budget overview that Gina finished presenting. Before we go into the department budget, we should have done that.
Does council have any questions for Gina's part of the report? Councilman Newton.
Thank you, Mayor. Gina, on just a clarification on page 15, or I'm sorry, page 8 first. This is in regard to the projected TOT tax for Wood Springs. And I just wanted to make sure that you're including, that 6 months is at the back end of this next fiscal year?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're anticipating them being open early winter?
It's 6 months at 50% occupancy, so we could say late spring at 100%.
Okay.
But we'll come back at mid-year if we find there's any delays of anything like that.
All right, I just want to make sure it wasn't anything sooner than that.
No.
Okay, that's included in this. Then on page 15, on summary of water fund revenues, you show irrigation water sales, $973,000. And I don't know if you may be able to answer this or not, is am I correct in making the assumption that the irrigation sales are still potable water
That is
sales?
correct. Yes.
Okay, that is still coming out of our purchase water agreements.
That's correct.
Okay. So at this point, I guess this was almost a question then for Ted, with RCRA, we're still nowhere close to getting non-potable water out of the treatment plant?
We're closer now than we were a year ago. So I anticipate, and I think Chad will bring it to us soon if I'm not correct, is by the end of the year, by the January, we should have some better understanding of that. And that's the goal, is to have that up and running by the 1st of January. Again, there's a lot of infrastructure that has to be up in place and negotiations with one of our cities in the JPA to see if it's better to sell it to them or use our own. So that's where we're at, and I don't want to take away from him, but I think he's going to present that here in the near future, correct? And I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I was just, 4 years ago, it was in 2 weeks, so I just wanted
Let
to...
me say something to that, Councilmember Newton.
Andy, let me go back to that on the irrigation thing for a second, though. Since irrigation water is, we sell at a lesser rate to commercial businesses.
No.
No, it's
No.
the same.
We
rate.
sell it at the same rate as we do the potable, even though it's potable water.
Yeah,
And there's no...
They just have a different meter for the irrigation.
Correct.
Yeah,
Right.
that's all.
So where does that benefit the business customer? Is it in the sewer
Yes.
capacity?
That's correct.
Is that where the benefit would be?
That's correct.
Okay. That was all I had.
What I was going to talk about is the recycled water project. At the staff level, we have reviewed various options that are available to us to complete the recycled water project. Our plan is to bring that back to you perhaps in August, no later than August. There are various challenges that we are facing in terms of the cost of building out that infrastructure and the customer base that we need in order to support that. However, there are, again, several options that we are looking at, which we have reviewed at the staff level. We'll bring that back to you in August to get some direction from City Council in terms of how we move forward with a recycled water project.
On that note, when you bring that back to us, would you also include, like, Norco Ridge Ranch, that was all, when that was built, that included all the piping for non-potable recycled water, correct? And over the years, if all that piping has never been used, what would be like the lifespan? Are we going to find something that says we're going to have to spend X amount of dollars to repair that piping that was put in place in the early 2000s?
Yeah, if we decide to go with building out the recycled water project, then those pipelines would have to be upgraded. However, if we decide that from an economic standpoint, financial standpoint, that building out the recycled water project is not the prudent thing to do, then there are other potential uses of those pipelines that have been identified as well.
Right.
If I could add to your
Understood.
your
Brian.
question is that the existing infrastructure that was plumbed for that, we're actually putting potable water through there. So that irrigation, even though it's,
Oh, okay, so we're using the system.
yes, the difference is it's potable water. Now, when we get in ready to actually implement a recycle program, we may have some updates that have to be done to that system, just to keep it up to speed because
Right.
of, regulation signage, things like that.
Sure.
Heads particular because heads have to be properly marked, but for the most part, that infrastructure is being used, but it's being used with potable water.
Okay. So I think where you're leaning toward, Andy, is that we don't have enough customer base for a recycled water program.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges we are facing. Then the question is, are we better off, again, repurposing the infrastructure and assuming we have a customer who is willing to buy our water from the treatment plant, does that work out financially for us? And those are the options we are looking at, and we hope to bring it back to you in August.
Thank you.
If I may add, when we did our initial cost, the cost of the tertiary water, reclaimed water, is not cheap. And we found out we may not be, it's one of those things, you keep the potable water, but it's a future thing we have to look at, because right now, the other groups are looking at who can use it too. So between Arupa Community Service District, they're looking at it, but for us, again, it was dollars and cents. It may be cheaper or in the long term better for us to sell it to somebody else, but that's all preliminary yet until they figure out where they're at. So that's the only thing I can take from there.
So haven't we plumbed many of our parks for non-potable water?
We did do, some of our major parks have been done that way, but the problem is, particularly those that are along Fifth Street, Snipes Park, Waymakin, Cheer, those have all been done, and we have done Pikes Peak Park, as well as part of Ingalls is done. The challenge is that we just don't have that transfer of water in that line. One of the things that would
What
have
do you
to be...
mean the transfer water? Sorry.
We're using potable water
Right.
versus if reclaim is brought to us, then we would bring it. What is done is in the intersections where that water is, we make the connection there at that point in time. And that would be part of the overall project when it becomes available.
So would it be fair to say, Andy, that the delay on this, because I came into this when I got on council 10 years ago, would it be fair to say that this has cost us thousands of dollars in use, and now, was it cheaper 10 years ago, and now the cost is escalated to such a point, or?
A couple of things. Let me clarify what Brian said. To be sure, a lot of city parks are still not piped for.
That's correct.
Right, but the major ones, no, I knew which parks are plumbed.
Secondly, the answer to your question is that this water has not been available. Had we had the infrastructure, the water was not available because of the litigation that was going on regarding the whether the entities could actually take the water from the treatment plant. That is still working its way through the process. Could we have sold it at a better price then? Potentially, yes.
Or could it have been cheaper to do our parks? I'm still frustrated with this.
Yeah, potentially, yes. But again, the water was not available then.
We were told 6 months it would be here 10 years ago. But anyway, that's neither here.
Whoever was telling
Just
you
curious.
that actually didn't have the control over the availability of that water.
Just so you know, Kevin, they're putting in the monitoring wells now.
What's that?
They're putting in the monitoring wells now in the Santa Ana River. That process alone, working with the Army Corps of Engineers and Fish and Game, that took almost 18 months just to contact the correct people to see who could get it done. That's being done now in the process. The major thing that we're going to, and because I'm if you ask Chad, I hamper on him all the time on this, is our pumps and our infrastructure at RCWA for us to use the water, it may not meet the capacity. We, as a city, may have to invest in our infrastructure there just to get the water that's there to get it to use. So that's something Chad will probably bring up in August. He knows I'm harping on him about it because I'm like you. It's there. And we don't have that. If you look at the last thing, our percentage of use of that water isn't as great as Arupa and Corona. And then Home Gardens just sold their portion to Corona. So.
Council have any other questions of Gina on the first part of the report?
I do. If you're done, Greg, were you done?
Yeah.
Okay. I just had a couple on there, and you answered the question about the reclaimed water, and you mentioned the dog license, and I mean, I'm not picking on it because it's probably not that great. Isn't it true that when we went to the 3-year renewal, that we knew this was going to happen and the decrease of that? Because even Frankie brought that up on the fact that that was going to happen.
It doesn't seem to change. We seem to project low, and then I come back and say we've received more revenue. So I think a part of that is animal control is going out there looking, but I'm not seeing a dip in the revenue.
Okay.
So
I just
project conservatively.
You're correct that the 3-year license program was anticipated that it would drop off as you rotate up to those 3 years. However, we have not seen that in the last 2 fiscal years.
Okay. And let's go back to page 4 on your slideshow. You had mentioned the MPDES and the fact we haven't paid anything between you and Andy. When are we going to start paying that? Is that something that it's mandatory we have to pay on this? Well, on page 4, she is talking about the fact that for the 4th year that does not include general fund, a $75,000 transfer to national.
Yeah, that's a different thing. What we're talking about, prior to us increasing the assessment on a parcel basis to generate revenues that goes into that program, the city general fund used to transfer $75,000 to meet their obligations. Since we increased that assessment, there is no need to transfer those $75,000 annually. However, the regulations pertaining to MPDS is increasing significantly. I think we will take a look at that when we review the department budget for the MPDS, and as a result of that, who knows, maybe the revenue there will be a future need to make those transfers to catch up with the program requirements.
Okay, that clarifies that one. And then you've got budget does not include MOU considerations. Is that our current contracts, or what is that?
Yes, current contracts.
For our counties?
For the coming year. I'm sorry, for city staff for the coming year.
Okay, just city staff, okay. And let me jump back. And I don't know, Andy or Andy, well, Andy or Andy. Right now, the county has not completed the RSA or LEMU contracts, correct? So we're still up there in the...
The LEMU contract is completed. That one doesn't expire till 2022.
Okay.
RSA is still at impasse with the county.
So they're still going on past contracts. Okay.
Correct.
And then you mentioned the fact that we have the one sergeant here, but don't we have 2 sergeants under the? It's a sergeant for every 6 deputies the way it used to work. So that's still part of the contract.
So currently we have 1 sergeant vacancy and 1 sergeant filled.
Okay.
Those are provided through the county. What we're looking for is having a dedicated sergeant that would be dedicated specifically to the contract.
Right, but basically we do get, because of the contract rate, is it true that we get 1 sergeant for every 6 paid deputies on a contract rate?
There isn't a set number as far as supervision to deputies. That was the two sergeants were provided at the time, but there is no set ratio between deputy and sergeant worked in the contract rate.
Okay. And then, do you have any idea what the new contract rate is for just a sergeant, an individual paid position, what it is annually?
So for a dedicated sergeant position, it would be an increase of $250,000.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Any other council members have questions for Gina? Councilman Newton?
Back to what Ted was talking about, the lieutenant, was that I always thought part of our deal was that we had that second sergeant in our overall contract program. So if we're short a sergeant, shouldn't we be getting money back or being rebated?
Currently, the city doesn't pay for either sergeant position. Those sergeants are provided and paid through by the county.
Yeah, but you were to provide two. That's my understanding all along.
Here's what I think it's happened in the past and what the county is looking to change. The fact that we have a substation here in the city of Norco, and it would obviously not be to our advantage or the advantage of the county to have those sergeants be based at Harupa Station. So in order to supervise these deputies that are assigned to the city of Norco, who start their duties from here in the city of Norco, I think it was appropriate to have those sergeants be based here so that they can provide the supervision. But I don't believe there is a requirement that for X number, they provide us with X number of sergeants. Okay, so clearly they are looking to change that situation where basically none of those sergeants would be per se dedicated to Norco. Okay, they can be assigned anywhere, and perhaps they will report from Harupa Station. I think that is an argument to be made from the city perspective that as long as we have this substation, and the lieutenant and I have spoken about this, that it makes sense both for the county and for the city of Norco to have some of those sergeants, whether it's 2 or 3 or at least 1 to report here. But what the lieutenant is saying is that to improve the effectiveness of the department, we need to be sure that we at least have a sergeant that is dedicated to Norco, who helps with not just those supervisions, but a lot of the other administrative duties that are performed here at this substation.
Which would be included in the current rate that we're paying today?
Well, the sergeants, the supervision part of the sergeants is included in the rate, but if we contract for a dedicated sergeant, then we'll pay for that separately.
So when's the new sheriff going to come and make a presentation to council and like our previous sheriff did, and lay all this out? And during his campaign, when he said that, I'm going to reduce all the contract rates, when is that going to happen? So,
as you can see from the budget that was presented, whether it's to be credited to him or not, the reality is that this 2.2 contract rates that we have for the current fiscal year is the lowest that I have seen since I've been here, over 15 years. So whatever he did or whatever he didn't do, that is the reality, is that it is a 2.2% as opposed to the average that has been around 5%. Now, they have given us 5% for next year, but We had the contracts meeting last month, and one of his comments was, again, this is a placeholder. He's striving to lower this rate even more. He believes that this rate, by the time we get to this time next fiscal year, will be lower than the 5% that they're asking us to provide for in the budget. As far as coming out and making a presentation, we're in line. I think we've made contacts, and Cheryl, I don't know if we have a date yet, but it's something that we have certainly conveyed to them.
Thank you, Andy.
I just have one other. I'm kind of with Greg. I kind of would like to hear from the sheriff, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm not going to bust his chops in terms of saying it was lower, but I do have a concern. If Eastvale goes to their own police station, their own police department, will that affect us? Because we have a lot of cross traffic back and forth. Will that hamper? I mean, I do know there's times when our Norco guys go over there, and I know I've seen Eastvale cars over here when problems have happened. Is that going to affect us?
So that, because there would be their own agency, that would require a mutual aid request in order for that to happen. But
So that would
for
affect-
us to share services as we do now, because we're the same department, that would cease.
Do they understand that? Do you know if they understand the road they're going down?
That's a very good question. I don't know. I know they've made several presentations, and I haven't been present for those to.
You know, Andy, I don't know if this is, I'm wondering if maybe you and the city manager could sit down over there, and I know he's in the same boat you are, but I'm wondering if, or maybe the mayor, and talk about the perks you get by having our substation here, and maybe Eastvale doesn't quite understand everything that's going on between us. I don't know if that's appropriate or not appropriate, but right now, with our substation here, we have a big investment, but they also are part and parcel to that. And I'm just wondering one of the comments that was made when I was talking to one of their council people is they thought, well, they'll put in a resolution that they can never have to go to PERS. And they were told pretty quickly by an attorney that no, all it takes is, that's been litigated apparently. And so I'm very concerned about that move, only because we really enjoy some benefits of the two cities being next to each other. And I'm just wondering, maybe now is not the time to discuss it, but I'm just wondering if somehow we need to kind of let them know that it's going to be a whole new world if they go by themselves. I mean, they're surrounded by contract cities.
Right. I mean, obviously, those are the debate that the city of Eastvale has to do internally. I'm sure they understand the synergies that are here with us using the sheriff's department. But
I know we can't force
the
them.
merits of having their own police department or the demerits of that is something that I'm sure they are discussing vigorously in the city of Eastvale.
Anyway, it's a concern.
I have one other thing on this, and it kind of bothers me that we have only the one sergeant here. And I'm kind of like with Greg. We've been paying the contractual rate, a supported contractual rate for these people. And when we went through our budget last year, and I know there's been a change in sheriff, and that's not what I'm getting at here, is that we did that based upon the contractual rate of having these two sergeants here for the year. And now we say we don't. And they're changing the rules somehow, or changing their allocation. And I guess as a lack of a term, but as a customer of that, we got to find out why they changed the rules and why we don't have a second sergeant here. And I understand it's a contractual support rate, and they're saying they're coming out of Harupa, but when we did this budget last year, it was, and how long we've had one sergeant?
You've had the one sergeant since her retirement back in early March.
So we're sitting here since March, and we're going to play for the next 6 months and do this. And Andy, we got to figure out where they change this. And I don't know if just even at the department level, or if it's at the supervisor's level, because our contract is with the county of Riverside. So we understand what are they actually providing us. And because I think not only if they're going to do this for all the contract cities, that's fine, but let's get on. This has changed. And we've always had two sergeants here as part of the supported contractual agreement. And now all of a sudden we're changed. So I don't want to beat a dead horse.
Yeah, we'll have that starting with the captain.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, talk to Tim. Okay, thank you.
Was Decker our last dedicated sergeant, or was it Bill?
No, there's never been a dedicated sergeant. It's been quite some time.
Well, I thought Decker was, because he was here for several years. And getting on one of your deals there, Kevin, if you hadn't noticed sometimes when you're talking to those guys in Eastvale, and I like all of them, but I think they kind of consider us to be a third world country over here. So
I won't comment on that, but I will spit on the floor.
Okay.
Andy, we'll move on to the fire department.
Fire department, okay. So as everyone knows, we contract with County CAL FIRE for fire and emergency medical services. What we get is we have 2 fire stations here in the city of Norco with 2 paramedic engine companies. We also have a fire inspection bureau which assists us with planning and inspections. We also maintain an emergency operations center and a volunteer animal rescue team here in the city of Norco through the CAL FIRE contract. The fire department provides fire suppression, emergency medical services, rescue, hazmat response, planning and inspections. Through a cooperative fire service agreement with the Riverside County Fire, the city has access to additional emergency equipment such as aerial truck, brush engines, hazard material units, and breathing equipment. As the city manager, I'm the director of the city's emergency operations center, which this CAL FIRE maintains here in the city of Norco, and they provide training, emergency operations through the emergency operations center, facilitating training and drills for city staff, as well as providing public education to schools, businesses, and residents here in the city of Norco. With respect to how they achieve some of these programs, their goal is to respond to calls for service arriving 5 minutes or less 80% of the time on calls that they receive. They will continue to support the local community by providing public education, complete 100% of business license inspection for the fire and life safety on an annual basis, as well as continue the fall and spring weed abatement program, which is also managed through that contract. And finally, they will continue to apply for grant to help with equipment purchases and some of their programs. In 2018-2019, some of the accomplishments they have achieved this year is they implemented a revised vacant parcel weed abatement ordinance in recognition of the severe risk of unwanted wildfires as a result of the presence of weeds. And one of the things they recommended, which is being implemented with this weed abatement cycle, is a $250 citation for those who do not comply with the program after being notified. 30 days after that, they will pay a citation of $250 in addition to paying for the cost of abating the weed and 100% of that cost. So in some of their achievements. They responded to nearly 2,500 calls in 2018, arriving at the scene of the call 5 minutes or less 80% of the time. As you know, response times are very critical in terms of patients who are in emergency medical situations. The ability to survive depends on the ability of the fire department to arrive there on time. Some of the other programs they achieved in 2018 includes the updating of the local hazard mitigation plan for the city of Norco. This allows the city of Norco to receive reimbursement from CAL OES as well as Federal Emergency Management Authority. They have also, in this past year, updated the city's emergency operations plan. The EOP is the framework for how the city plans, prepares, and responds to major disaster and incidents within the city of Norco. They have also applied and received EMPG grant on behalf of the city of Norco. They have continued a robust fire and life safety annual business inspection program, participated in multiple school and public education programs, and they have acquired additional two defibrillator equipment, and which are placed in City Hall. And finally, they have worked with the Norco Youth Advisory Council to implement Stop the Bleed program here in the city of Norco. With respect to the budget, I think Gina did provide a quick overview of that fire operations budget. Again, the budget for this coming fiscal year, we are increasing that by 5% based on the actual expenditures we anticipate for the current fiscal year. Again, we have been contracting with CAL FIRE now for the last 5 or 6 years. And the reality of it is that every year, the budget numbers they give us have always come under. We have spent less than the actual budget numbers. We are continuing with one of the things we are doing differently this year is basing the next year's estimate based on what we believe will be the actual this current fiscal year. So we start with that number and then we increase it by 5.5% instead of using the number they provided to us on the Exhibit A of their contract. So that, to some extent, makes us factor some of the savings in next year's budget as opposed to waiting at the end of the year before we realize those savings. That is it for the fire budget, and I'll be glad to take any questions that you have.
I have one real quick, Andy. On page 8-5, you talked about engine 27 out of Eastville responding and taking care of Silver Lakes. I don't know how many calls of service they get in there, and I don't know. I don't know, Kevin. I can't say a lot, but without facts. But is there a way we can look at that as a way to determine eventually, and this is a contractual rate? I know they're going to. Do they charge us for those after a certain amount, or? I mean, a service, no, not Eastville, but the station, that's a CAL FIRE station. Okay, so it's all part of that, okay. Okay, I'm looking at the calls for service and knowing the demand, and I'm just looking at it. We need to probably at least figure out how many calls of service actually Silver Lakes is generating on those, and there's events, so that if something happens in the future, we can project for that. And then I look at, I know CAL FIRE Station 14 has always done a good job for us covering the south end. And when our other battalion chief was here, he recommended the fact that we increase some paramedics on that engine. I don't know if that's I didn't see it in his goals and objectives.
Obviously, that is one of the things in our strategic plan.
Okay.
We're certainly not looking to do that this coming fiscal year. I think one of the things that is in that strategic plan is to have a paramedic only vehicle, if you would, that would have 2 paramedics on it, as opposed to a complete fire engine. But that is something that we'll be discussing in the future.
And the reason I say that, with the state looking at ways to cut their costs, who knows what they're going to do with that station? And somebody up in Sacramento is going to figure out that it's basically just running out here. And so we have that, keep that in mind for future, so we know where we're at. Thank you.
Council have any other questions on the fire department budget?
I don't have a question, but I would like to say, and I also want to include the Sheriff's Department in this. I'm real pleased with the service that we get. My problem with Sheriff's Department, we don't have enough deputies. I just want more deputies. And I think you've done actually a really good job coming in. I've been very pleased. So I want to preface what I'm about to say about the fire department. I've been really pleased also with the fire department. The service we're getting is, and again, I want to include the police department, but the fire, having Greg and I and Berwin having lived through that changeover and all of the doom and gloom that was told, they have just done an incredible job. And I also think it's textbook what happens when several communities have the same service. I mean, Norco is so well protected now. We're literally surrounded by fire stations around us internally. And like the deputies, I think we get really friendly, good deputies, and I think we support them, and I feel like we get supported by them also. I wish Scott was here to hear that, because I'm just real pleased with the fire department service. That's all I want to say. All right, I just want to make sure, and I want you to hear it too, Chief. I want you to hear it also, because we just beat you up a little bit there.
On to fiscal and support. Fiscal and Support Department is responsible for accounting and financial reporting, budget administration, utility billing and call center, special district financial administration, and cash and investments management. Now, the story I'd like to give about this department is, of course, our core objective is to have successful completion of audits. And we have had that over many years. We're anticipating the GFWA award again, and I believe, Andy, it might be the 15th or 16th year that we're receiving this. And that's the end goal, but it's a full year. We've folded into that full year has been amazing over the last 2 years, actually, succession planning. We've hired a wonderful accounting manager who's a CPA and certified fraud examiner, a great team behind me right now who was here kind of late last night, and a wonderful senior accountant who's been here many years, and then an admin analyst who, as you know, handles a lot of waste management issues, as well as many other items, and a core team of utility billing customer service representatives that really go all out for staff and the residents. So included in that succession planning is a lot of change, and even good change is hard. And they all have, since I've been here, shifted and moved significantly and learned quite a bit. We've had significant software changes. We moved our financial system to the cloud, and then had to upgrade after that. And during that whole process, we've been moving towards implementing other software, and this is my story. So going into the water app, that's been on our table for quite a while. It's still there, and it's moving forward. And the functionality will be soon for you to be able to see your bill and make a simple payment. The next step in that will be for you to actually use your credit card and have repetitive payments. And I could tell you a longer story on that one, but it's a lot going on when you have an AMI system that reads, and we don't have, we're not old school here. We're very progressive. And the major goal by the year end is to have that implemented, the water portal. The app will be coming in this next year. Along the line of a new technology is we've implemented new business license software. So internal staff is using it. The next step is to have online business license renewals coming in July. That is the next step. The little minor steps you'll see between now and then is the implementation of yard sale online permits, which you'll be able to use a check. If you don't use a check, it'll be a credit card, and unfortunately a charge on that credit card, which will make the $9 probably $12 to $13. But we're looking at that as possibly being an option if you choose to pay extra. And that goes to the merchant company, not us. So that's the larger goals coming and where we've been this last year. And I just want to share my gratefulness and pride to my team over this last few years. They're all amazing. And then another accomplishment is this budget book that you see before you. A lot of work from city staff. Andy saying, sure, why not, change it, and making these changes. You'll see more as we go forward, and the ultimate goal for this next year is to win an award for the budget document, the first year. And that will take some time over the next months to implement that. And let's see, other accomplishments. We brought you a purchasing ordinance. You'll see something more this next year. We'll be looking at internal purchasing manual that will be changing and revisiting our ordinance to see if there's anything else we need to change. And there's a few things there. We're assisting the Recreation Department in their online recreation program and working on that and continuing internal controls in that area. And we're continuing to strengthen our waste management customer service program. We've done a complete, thorough review, and it's ongoing thorough review of our deferred loans. Julie Hauser and Lizette have done an excellent job looking at that. And we've, as you know, with the binders that you've been carrying, completed a cost allocation plan and fee study. And that'll be presented to you in summary tonight. And I'm sure there's more, but that's it for goals and accomplishments and this coming year. And also thank you for your patience and support. So when we look at next year's budget, what I've included in here is a statement that says basically in the general fund, the fiscal and support budget did decrease by 4%. And that's the result of the information technology charges. The fiscal and support budget was basically carrying the load for that, for the IT department. So that's been shifted around. But then overall, we are increasing by 3%, which includes water and sewer fund. And we've included, let's see, additional training for staff, on-site training with our new world environment, and off-site training as well. And ongoing costs with business license software. We do anticipate additional costs associated with having our business license software communicate with our community development software in the future. And that's it for finance. Questions?
Council have any questions on finance?
I do. Your staff is doing absolutely great, and I agree with you. Your predecessor did a fairly good job, but I think you've upped the game. Okay. My question's on...
Called handing off the good product.
That's right, yeah. My question's on business license and how you're improving that whole system. And not to pick on Steve here at all, but is there a way with that, when you're upgrading your business license, to create some type of nexus with that for our building and safety department, so that when you have a contractor come in, right, and you give them hopefully you give them a subcontractor list, that it makes it easier to check to make sure that, let's just use, since we talked about Wood Springs, all those subcontractors working out there, do they all have city businesses license?
Easier is an interesting term. There is a way to do that.
Okay.
To have a look up with our new system. And What I think we'd like to do is make it fewer clicks for Steve's staff to identify that, so that we are looking to see how it will integrate, HDL will integrate with community development software, so it's right there on one screen. But they currently have that ability to look up individuals in there to see if they do have a license. I can get
I'm
more
just
technical.
trying to think there's an easier way, for your department.
Yeah, right now. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead, no.
No, right now it can be done. It's a kind of complicated process to do the research and get it done. But with the new software that hopefully is going to get approved in the budget, that will become much easier. It's a matter of just clicking a button, because then it'll be integrated with finance.
Okay. I mean, I'd like to see that joined together, so, thanks.
Any other questions? All right.
City manager and city clerk, and economic development and human resources. And first, the city manager.
So, in terms of what I do, as you know, the city government we have here is a city manager, a city council style of government. Under that style of government, the city council is responsible for establishing, making policy decisions, and the city manager's office is responsible for implementing those policy decisions or actions of the city council. And of course, the way I do that is working with all these wonderful department heads, supervising the activities on a day-to-day basis, but also providing a strategic direction for the city of Norco. In terms of my objectives and how I get that done, I strive to be impartial and to be effective in implementing those directions of the City Council, and to provide the effective direction and supervision to all city departments to ensure that service delivery and implementation of programs are carried out on a timely and effective way. One of the duties, the critical duties of a city manager is to create a strategic plan and manage the implementation of that strategic plan, which guides what the city does on a day-to-day basis and on a year-to-year basis. New item for the city manager's office this year is with the passage of Measure R, there is a need to obviously ensure transparency, effective and efficient use of Measure R revenues, and that is one of the objectives that I have put in place to get that done. And also to respond timely to requests from the community as well as the city council members. Managing the budget development and making sure that city budget is balanced is one of the critical functions of the city manager department. We'll continue to work with departments to review our policies and procedures to make sure that they are current and that they are effective in delivering services and programs to the residents of Norco. And one of the things we have done over the last several years is, in fact, completing a significant amount of capital projects. The city manager, that starts off at the city manager's office, working with the various departments to prioritize these projects and monitoring them on a regular basis to make sure that all those projects are being delivered to the residents of Norco. We'll continue to do that. Of course, economic development is a major priority, and one of my focus as a city manager is to make sure that we emphasize those economic development projects that contribute significantly to the city's revenue base. And we've been very successful in achieving that over the last few years, given the number of retail establishments, significant ones that have been established, the hotels that are coming in, the approval of CarMax. So that is to continue to build on that is one of my objectives in the coming fiscal year. But most importantly, ethics in government is very critical to any city. And one of the objectives I have is to continue to demonstrate good ethics to be followed by staff, and hopefully the residents of Norco will recognize that, and I think that creates a lot of trust and credibility in what we do as a city government. In terms of accomplishment over the past year, obviously one of the biggest ones is the successfully developing the strategy for recommending and executing successfly with respect to Measure R and implementing the Citizens Oversight Committee. Again, the approval of the CAMAX wasn't easy, but a significant accomplishment over the past year. Balancing the budget and continuing to increase our fund balance, and as well as the fiscal condition of both the water and sewer fund is a key accomplishment under the city manager's department. We will continue to develop strategies, again, to successfully implement programs for the residents. Another challenge we are faced with this past year is the grand jury inquisition into the development of civil acts. I think my office managed that, the resolution of that successfully. It wasn't easy, but something I think proves the worth of what this city does, and again, some of the ethics that we are striving to establish here in the city of Norco. We'll continue prioritizing the completion of various capital projects, and we've done a lot of those for the last year. The district-based election, an issue that is still outstanding, but during the time we've worked on it, it's been handled very strategically, and hopefully someday we'll get a resolution to that, and then continue to provide direction to the execution of our strategic plan. We laid out 5 broad strategies in that, our priorities in that strategic plan that included many action plans that needed to be undertaken to accomplish them, and I'm happy to report that we have been executing on those very successfully. With respect to the budget, not sure why the 5%. The budget is simply a status quo budget. The change in the budget numbers is purely as a result of increases in pension costs. That is it. And the internal service fund, there was because Gina moved that from her department, then everybody else has to pay higher amount. So anyway, that is it for the city manager's office.
Questions on that part of the budget?
Good job.
Good job, Andy.
Good job.
And then we'll move on to the city clerk.
Yeah, the city clerk is the liaison between citizens and government. The city clerk serves as the elections official. Also, the city clerk's office ensures that elected and appointed officials comply with filing requirements as required by the Political Reform Act. And as far as accomplishments for the 2018-2019 fiscal year, as the elections official, the city clerk's office successfully officiated the November 2018 general municipal election for 3 city council member seats and 1 ballot measure. We also made sure that we provided quality candidate assistance in making sure that those candidates met all their legal filing responsibilities. And in regards to transparency and communications, which was a big part this current fiscal year. We continue to develop and enhance the city's various communication platforms, and we had marked improvements with our subscribers to our various platforms, including the Norco Newsroom, Facebook, Twitter, Nixle, and the Norco app. We also processed and responded to over 430 California Public Records Act requests, totaling more than 236 staff hours. We also the City Clerk's Office also conducted and coordinated the Youth and Government Day at City Hall, and also the 2019 State of the City Address. For goals and objectives for the next fiscal year, again, communications has been a big part of our office. But I just want to note two major goals for next year would be improving the city's record management system. That's something that's been in the work for quite some time. The city conducted, or my office conducted, a records assessment in 2017, and so since then I've been working closely with IT to look at our target areas. We have a wide variety of issues that we need to address. So records management certainly is at the absolute top of the list to work on for this next fiscal year. Not only will that provide improvements for the city clerk's office, but definitely citywide. It will provide more efficient assistance to staff, but also for the public. And that also includes agenda management that hopefully that's something that will be realized for next fiscal year. And again, that's something that will provide great efficiency for the city clerk's office. As you know, obviously we are a paper-based system when it comes to agenda preparation. And this would definitely transform what we do in the city clerk's office, literally taking a process that takes hours to a matter of minutes. So that's definitely at the top of the list. As far as the budget for 2018-2019, our expenditures were below budgeted amounts due to savings in contractual services. And for next fiscal year, we do have expenditures are less due to the one-time expenditures for the 2018 election. Questions?
Cheryl, you did a good job, and it's a great report. I'm just curious, and you processed and responded to 431 public records requests and 236 staff hours. Can you give me a ballpark what that cost us last year?
I don't have those figures in front of me, but a ballpark would probably be in the just under $1,000, maybe about $800, $900. A lot of what we provide is electronically.
But your hours in that time.
Oh, as far as staff time?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, we're talking,
$1,000 easily.
Okay, thank you. About 25 grand.
But, I thought you were meaning the cost.
Oh, no, that's
okay.
easy, okay.
Staff time? Yes.
Staff time, about $25,000 to process this. Okay, thank you very much. Good report, by the way. You did a good job.
Cheryl? If we were to take that 8% that you're under, and this is all with transparency, and we took that 8% number and put it in cash in a plastic bag, would you promise to stay? And not retire? Okay. So you do great.
Thank you.
I'm going to ding on you one time. There was only 2 city council seats on your report.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But you got that. Minor.
Yeah, I really want to thank you, Cheryl. I mean, even when you set the room up and stuff for us, you do everything you can to help us make good decisions, and I really, really appreciate that. And I know that the last couple of years, particularly in your office, have been really hard. I know Silver Lakes, and I still remember that stack of paperwork that the grand jury asked for and clearly didn't know how to read, maybe. I shouldn't say that, but your work for us has just been stellar, and what you've organized is amazing. And after you've gone, I'm actually looking forward to going to the paperless system. I think that'll be good for all of us. You'll hear it again, but thank you. You've been a huge asset to the city of Norco and to the residents, and I really thank you.
Thank you. Well, the city council certainly makes my job easier.
Of course we do.
No, you do. Really do.
At least some.
I'm lying.
At least many of you.
Next up is economic development.
In essence, the mission of economic development is to attract new revenue-generating enterprises to Norco, as well as ensuring the success of those that are currently operating in the city. Our input from the business community is to the Economic Development Advisory Council, EDAC. In addition to EDAC, the Economic Development staff assists the Historic Preservation Commission. I'll go through a few of the goals and objectives for the coming year. Our intent is to implement economic development initiatives that lead to increased municipal revenues and diversification of the local tax base. We continue to implement a Destination Norco marketing campaign, a multimedia campaign, to attract tourists to Horsetown, USA, and work with local businesses to provide the amenities those visitors seek. Hospitality is a low-impact industry that is compatible with our lifestyle. We hope to continue the financially sustainable management of the 6th Street Gateway sign, publicizing local events to residents and visitors, and generating a modest revenue stream from advertisers. And we will seek to fine-tune our policies so that there's complete clarity. We want to ensure that there's an efficient and equitable administration of housing programs in the city. We're working with Michael Baker International as our housing consultants. There are so many Norco residents, homeowners that need assistance. This is a program that doesn't have a high profile but is incredibly important. We want to assist the Historic Preservation Commission with its efforts, making preservation a real asset to future economic development initiatives, and to connect the residents of Norco to their rich heritage. We also want to influence prospective development plans through input from EDAC and the public, so that we continue to have the benefits of a real sound economic development program. I'm proud to list some of the accomplishments from the closing fiscal year. We received commitments from national retailers such as CarMax, Grocery Outlet, Dollar Tree, and Fazoli's, which happened to have just opened yesterday. It reflects an emphasis on quality revenue-generating businesses. We also attracted the Derby Room, an independent sit-down restaurant with horse racing wagering, which appears to be doing quite well. Based on demand from Silver Lakes and Ingalls Park, we've continued to promote Norco as an attractive hospitality market. We've worked with every major hotel operator in the country. Several discussions are currently ongoing with developers, and we hope to see future announcements of hotels. With the planning department, we've ensured the construction of Woodspring, which will open in September, and we've teed up the construction of True Hotel for the coming fiscal year. We've also enhanced the city of Norco's image as an innovative municipality and a place to not only to conduct business, but to work and live as well through forums like the ICSC conferences. We've empowered the Historic Preservation Commission to recommend designation of 2 new local landmarks and 1 new point of historic interest. And we've, in terms of those housing, affordable housing programs that I spoke of, we've increased the productivity. In one program, the water bill subsidy, we've increased the numbers from approximately 110 households to 185, and mostly seniors. Economic development staff also coordinates the submittal of grant applications for a number of departments, and we were successful in receiving $243,000 from CAL FIRE for an urban forest enhancement project. That was just announced a few days ago. We're very delighted about that. And we were successful in securing $280,000 from the state for electric vehicle charging stations. In terms of the budget, as indicated, the operating expenses are not changing. They're sustaining at their current rates. The gateway sign is still financially sustainable, but we'll be exploring more aggressive approaches to advertising sales. Also, staff will participate in ICSC, but on a more limited basis, focusing on regional events instead of the national conference that is more costly. We do have one additional request for the coming year. This is a joint project of Economic Development and Parks and Rec. George Ingalls Equestrian Event Center really has untapped value, and staff has believed for a long time that investigating the sale of the naming rights to the facility could create a revenue stream, the kind of revenue that could be used for future improvements and amenities at the facility. This would be a $25,000 expenditure for a market valuation report. It's the first phase of a package that would include some additional services. If the report is promising, the phase 1 report, we could move on to a second phase, retaining the consultant for actual marketing and negotiation with prospects, or we could internalize those tasks in-house. We can visit that at the time. Another consultant previously considered by staff was charging $65,000 for a very similar product. So we feel that this is a very good value at $25,000. Granted, there's no guarantee that it will ultimately lead to a deal, but staff feels that it's worth the effort.
Council have any questions for economic development?
On this naming rights, did we had we had like a general discussion before that we would hire a consultant, he would charge us to see if someone's interested in calling it ABC Arena, and then he still gets a spiff on top of what he brings in?
So yes,
is that kind of the way that business works?
Yeah, the way this industry works is there's two steps. The first step is they create they determine the market value for the facility. And they also provide some potential leads. So it's like an appraisal. They might say, it appears you can raise, $100,000 per year in a 10-year deal.
And you're going to give me part of that 100?
Well, yes. They hope you'll retain them for the second phase, which would be a monthly retainer. The firm we're currently suggesting has a monthly retainer of $8,000. The norm is actually $10,000. And then they receive a commission on any ultimate deal that is brokered. And this firm takes a commission of 10%. The firm we were looking at earlier last year, excuse me, they have a 15% commission. Those are the same people that would charge $65,000 for the market study. So yes, you're looking at potentially some, hefty expenditures if you go through the second phase.
Without belaboring the point, and outside of you, okay, I think you know my general opinion on consultants, that I think this would be a good project for you to work on within your job description. I think you have the talent and the ability to do it, and we'll save $25,000 for something that's going to be a loser down the road.
Well, I thank you.
Take the compliment however you'd like,
I
Roger.
appreciate the confidence. Staff has actually attempted to do this or I've attempted to do it on my own on a small scale. I've called, I called Monster Energy, I called Justin Boots, Wrangler Jeans. I didn't get very far. My recommendation is, without committing to that more expensive phase 2, it would be very valuable to know what our asset is worth and have some preliminary leads that we could approach. And then $25,000.
My gosh. Fair.
Or Purina Marino Arena. Say that 3 times real fast.
Hey, Roger, I got a couple of things. One, I want to compliment you on your attempt to try to put the farmers market together, even though between the heat and lack of vendors or the lack of response, I still think it's a worthwhile community effort. And whether, I know the city's tried 3 of them now, and they haven't happened, but keep that in the back of your mind, especially with your EDAC committee, for any alternatives or some kind of a seasonal type of a program. I don't want to see it go to the waste, but I think in the long run it does help. It seems like private operations like Hillside Farms, they do well, and maybe because of their establishment, but we need to work into, even the high school does a pretty good little program over there. The other thing, and I want to congratulate you on the grants that you worked on. The one thing I'm gonna harp on you, and I harp on you every time I walk by, is Holiday Inn Express. That corner is very valuable. And I know you keep in contact with him, but that guy needs to get a fire lit underneath him.
I agree. Keep reminding me.
Okay, I know you don't have much control on him, and it's sad, but...
I mean, just to update you, we have... we've been talking with him about developing, and in lieu of him, if he chooses not to develop, we have also provided him with 2 serious prospective buyers, and I know he's still in contact with one of them, so hopefully somebody will build that product on that site. We're cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously, I'd rather say you say we're optimistic, but that's okay. Keep a fire on him. Thank you.
Any other questions? So I think, Gina, in light of time, and I know we probably have a card or 2, can we just do HR and then do public comment? Will that work for you? Is that fine with you, Andy?
Yeah, that was good.
Because then that'll kind of end us right before non-departmental.
Okay.
Okay.
HR manager? Okay, HR is part of the administration department. It's part of our administration department. Human resources manages employee training, development, recruitment, administers our benefits program, compensation, equal employment, assist with the administration of risk management, which includes workers' comp and general liabilities, participates in labor negotiations, and plays a key role as far as attracting and recruiting new employees to the city of Norco. objectives for next year is that the HR manager will continue to assist the city manager in the management of the city's risk programs, including the general liability, workers' comp, retiree health benefits, continue to administer low-cost training to city employees to ensure compliance to rules and regulations in personnel management practices, quality customer service, as well as succession planning. We'll continue to promote citywide quality customer service for internal and external customers, continue to monitor state and local federal legislations as it relates to human resources practices, and make sure that the city is in compliance. Complete update of the city's personnel rules and regulations, and assist the city manager to identify and implement programs to enhance employment place and wellness satisfaction. Implement relevant actions and plans to achieve the city's strategic priorities. In terms of accomplishment over the last fiscal year, the HR manager obtained the Society for Human Resources Management Senior Certified Professional Certification. This is a very prestigious certification that is only accorded to those who meet very rigorous training and pass a rigorous examination process. And she did achieve that during this past year. She destroyed over 200 records in compliance with the city's records management. Yeah, we're going to do that. Conducted employee investigations, many of those, and provided the reports to demonstrate our compliance with OSHA, coordinated required training including first aid, CPR, and various other trainings that are required of employees and management staff. In compliance with the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, coordinated sexual harassment awareness training for all employees through the city's counseling team, coordinated customer service training for all staff. These are very critical accomplishments that are required in order to make sure that our employees are performing up to standard, and conducted over 20 recruitment, 20 positions, and successfully administered health, pension, and other employee benefit programs to the city of Norco employees. As far as the budget is concerned, not sure why the increase in 13% it is higher compared to amended budget to the first time allocation of information technology, internal charges, and salary and benefit adjustments. That's what we are looking at right now for the budget. We'll follow up with that.
Any questions on the HR?
I might suggest if the word fits, I'd rather see purged rather than destroyed.
Yeah.
I know, it just sounds better. I know, it's more politically correct, okay?
It is a process, it is a significant review process that goes into, we have a record retention schedule that identifies how long we are required by law to retain various records in the city, and on a periodic basis, actually, those come to the city council, reviewed by the city attorney's office, and then they are destroyed.
Okay, so at this time, we'll go ahead. Cheryl, do we have any cards?
Yes, Mayor, I have one card. Bill Naylor.
Council, I just was I've spent a lot of time doing budgets when I was working for another city, and I just noticed that I had 3 questions that I'm either misunderstanding or the figures are not quite right. The form that I was given here, which I'm assuming that some of you guys are working with too, and the 3 items that I saw was, you just were talking about human services, and in here, up there on the screen, it was showing about $175,000. On this, it's showing only $135,000. I'm because figures are not quite balancing. This says it's a 16% increase, and yet the report up there said it was a 13% increase. So that was one point that just needed to be looked at. The second item was under finance or physical and support services. It was kind of the same type of thing. On this paper that I've got here, it says the budget's $627,000 and some odd dollars for a minus 4%, according to the paper here, and yet in the report that was given, I saw up on the board that it was 1.5 million, and it was so that's why I was just questioning that. Then the last item I saw down here was under fire suppression. Again, in the report, he had indicated that it was a 5% increase in the budget for the year proposed, and on the form here, I'm only seeing a 2%, so I'm just, things aren't jiving, and there's probably a legitimate reason for it. I just don't know what it is, and I just thought I'd ask.
Gina, do you want to go ahead and answer his questions?
Yes, I did have a handout for everybody who was here just on the general fund only. And what was presented are all funds. So that's the difference in the percentages.
You're welcome. Perfect. All right. Does council have any other comments or discussion for today? All right.
Good report, everybody. Thank you.
To be continued.
Yeah, so we will be continuing budget study sessions June 5th, correct? At 4 o'clock. Okay, so with that, this meeting is adjourned.